how did I actually find out that my husband, now former husband, was essaying our daughter? A lot of people have asked this in comments recently. I did go over this in a video, but it was a few years ago. So I'll do another video that's kind of a concise summary of the events. It won't be super detailed because then the video will be like 10 minutes long. So I'll try to be concise about it and just kind of go over the basics. It started with me feeling like my daughter just was not well. She just didn't seem like herself. Things just seemed wrong. That's the best way I can explain it. It seemed off. She may have been around 8 at the time that I started being like, is she okay? What is going on? Maybe 9. I'm not exactly sure quite when my concern started. My concern turned specifically to concerns of sexual abuse when I discovered that my daughter had been viewing pornography on a tablet that we had. And it seemed clear to me that it wasn't just pornography that she stumbled on, but that she was specifically looking for it. And she was so young at the time. It didn't make any sense. It wasn't like our family was not a family that, like, sexualized content wasn't talked about a whole lot, or, you know what I mean? I tried to be open with them, but it definitely wasn't. I knew our home life was not the kind that would just encourage a child to go look for pornography. So I was really concerned about that. Yes, I talked to her specifically about it. I didn't want her to feel ashamed of it or to feel like she was in trouble. She was a little kid. But I did need to know what in the world would make you look for that. Her answer was that it was probably just that video that she had accidentally seen with her brother, which I was already aware of. This was a while ago, where they stumbled on something and it was briefly shut down. But that was her response, was, oh, well, it was probably just that video I saw with Trevor and it was stuck in my head. And I thought, okay, I accepted that answer from her, of course, but in my head I was like, that doesn't seem right. I feel like there's more to this. Yes, I asked her specifically, directly, many times when I was concerned about abuse. I would ask her things like, is anybody hurting you? Is anybody making you feel unsafe? Is anybody making you feel uncomfortable? Is anybody abusing you? I would ask that even specifically. Is anybody touching you in ways that they shouldn't? My mistake there was asking with words like, well, I don't know about my mistake, but the reason why this didn't work for her was because I was asking with words like hurt, abuse, shouldn't, uncomfortable. She didn't realize she was being abused. So her answer to those questions were always no. I said, is there anyone you feel unsafe around? No. When I began to worry specifically about sexual abuse and I began to really look a lot harder and watch her and think, where or who, how could this even be happening? Who has access to her? When is she's not even away from home very often. And so I started going through everyone I could think of in our lives. And the only person that gave me any weird vibes was actually my husband's father at the time. I have some videos about this too. I'll try not to go into too much detail on this one because it'll make the video super long. But when you look at, what are signs of someone who is or could be predatory, this man checked off way too many boxes, I realized. I didn't see it at first, but when I really started to look, I was like, So I started to just refuse to let him to be alone with her. I didn't say it out loud to the family like, he can't be alone with Lauren. But I did everything I could to make sure this man was never alone with her. And then I even brought it up to my husband. And I thought for sure my husband was going to be so angry at me for saying this because he was really loyal to his dad. But surprisingly, when I brought up my concerns, he was like, oh, what? He says what? He does what? That's weird. I'm not okay with that either. I'll help you. And he vowed to help me make sure that she was never alone with his dad whenever they were visiting. And we were really stringent on that. But makes a lot more sense now looking back. So then, fast forward to the time where I found out specifically, and again, this won't be in super detail because the point of this video is like, how did I find out? Not all of the details of things that were said, etc., but more like what led to it. So there's a time where my husband at the time, he's my ex-husband now, but at the time it was my husband, he was away on a scouting trip, and my daughter just didn't seem okay. She was to the point where she wasn't eating much. She had been sick frequently. I've mentioned that before. Her mood was even she was cranky. She was just like antisocial with the family. She was angry often, and it was weird because I just wasn't used to that with her. So I had been obsessing and reading as much as I could because I was worried about her anyways. And one thing I had read somewhere was that one question you could ask your child is, do you have a secret? It's a really open, non-threatening way to get a child to talk about something that might be bothering them. And so I tried that. We sat at the kitchen table and I was like, hey, honey, I'm still really concerned about you. I know you keep saying you're fine, but I don't know. And I said, do you have a secret? And that is what unlocked it for her. It was a process over a few days. She didn't just pour the story out, but when I said, do you have a secret? She responded with, no. And then she thought for a minute and she said, well, I mean, Dad didn't say I couldn't tell you. He just said I didn't have to. And I was like, wait, what? And then she began to talk. What she said concerned me enough for me to, I kind of took a breather. So I let her talk. She was pretty vague, but it was enough to make me really worried. And I came back to her a day or two later and said, hey, when you told me that, I feel like I didn't ask the right questions. So I'm going to ask you again. Can you just tell me what happened with Dad? Just talk, and I'm not going to interrupt you. I'm just going to listen. And that's when she told me everything. Well, I mean, that's when she told me enough for me to realize, oh God, my husband abused my daughter, and he's not safe. And yes, from there, I reported him. He was arrested. I divorced him, all of that. But that is as brief as I can get about how exactly I found out and how I got her to finally open up and talk to me. Hopefully that helps. With every child, it's going to be something different probably that unlocks them. For my child, what unlocked her was, do you have a secret?